we're going to do it today. You okay? So everyone knows, if you don't know, my name is Giovanna Casanova, and so today I'm just going to speak about what my life has been and how I've got to know the Lord, and just what the Lord has been teaching me over my life, and just the message that He wants me to say. So I go by many names if you don't know. Gigi, Gia, Gio, anything with G-Dog or G, you can just call me over there. So if you don't know me also, you might know me from my middle school brother, my intermediate sister, my little sister in elementary, or me from high school, so everywhere. So yeah, I've just always been raised in the church. So my grandmother, sorry guys, so my grandmother, she was like the children's pastor at my church for a long time. And my mother, she led a lot of worship. So I've always been like motivated to sing and just motivated to sing inside the church anytime that I could. So there's a picture of that. Okay. So yeah. So you can tell I haven't grown a lot. But yeah, not the one behind, the one, yeah. The one in the red dress. That was me. Thank you. So in the next picture, you see all my siblings. So yeah, I've just grown up with a mother who was Caribbean and a father who was from America, and so I've always had that mixed point of view. And even if he wasn't part of my life for a long time, I've just always felt different from my peers, from my siblings, because they have a different father from me. And I've always grown up with this streak of blonde. It's like a birthmark, I don't know if you can see it. But yeah, since I was a little baby, because of my father. And so I just always grew up not liking my birthmark, because it remembered me of my father. But we'll all come in later. So the turning point that I had when I got to know Christ was first when I was in my weakest moment, when I was around 11 or 12 years old in my 6th grade. That was before I got to here. And I was in a public school, and I was just very lost. I was depressed, I had so much anxiety, and I would have suicidal thoughts, and I was just a complete mess. And I never really accepted what Christ had in store for me. And I just had a lot of negative thoughts about my body, about how I could sing, about how God was going to use me in my life, and I just wanted to end it there and then, because I thought that would be easier than having to live my life. Thank God I didn't, because I want to be before you. But then I switched schools, and I came here, because my mom was like, we need to get you out of there. I actually was absent in my old school for 56 days. Yeah, 56 days, that's a lot of days. And I wasn't getting expelled, but it was clear that I was very behind in my grades and everything. So my mom was like, you need to switch. So to come here, I had to repeat a grade. So I repeated the 6th grade. And just the influence that the teachers had on me, I realized, like, this is bigger than me. Like, God actually wants to be in a relationship with me, and He has so much in store for me. So that's when I finally realized I needed Jesus in my life. And so I got baptized. And one of the first experiences that I had with Christ was at my baptism on a Sunday night at the Naz when I was getting baptized. And I remember going in, and then as I was still sunk in the water, I saw this really bright light. And my eyes were closed, they were closed, but I saw this bright light, and I knew that it was God. And you can't tell me different, because I know it was God. And that was probably one of the first examples that I saw of God evident in my life. And then in middle school, my mom was like, so we actually don't like the weather here, and I feel like God's calling us somewhere else, so we moved to Florida. And for that transition, I really hated it at the end of 8th grade, because I had made so many friends that are here today that I thought I'd never see again. And so while I was there, we went to a really small church called Faith Family Community Church. And while I was there, I really loved the people and everything, but when I went to the youth group, the people there were not as nice as they would seem, and so I prayed for years and years that it would change. And eventually, the year before I came here, it eventually changed. And I kept on going, but I prayed that God would just change the leadership, change the environment of what it was like there, and eventually it did. And that was just an evidence of God working in my life again. And it would probably show a picture of all the people in my youth. We were not a lot of people in my youth, but it was still enough that it felt very homey and cozy like a family. So after that, this is like towards the, let's say, last fall, no, around May last year, my stepfather to my siblings, he started telling my mom lies and started just causing a lot of corruption in their marriage. So they started getting a divorce, and my mom, again, she wanted to move to Ohio again. So I was like, okay, Mom, let's make up your mind. So we ended up coming back to Ohio, which I really did not like because I missed my own church, and I knew coming here it was going to be a hard transition in youth, a hard transition in schools. But through God taking me back here, I was able to be friends with my 8th grade and 7th grade buddies again that I never thought I would see ever again. And through that, I was able to come here. And so I've grown in this church in ways I never did 4 years ago that I was too afraid, because I always viewed this youth as being too big, which I shouldn't have, because if you come in here, it's evident that as long as you start making connections, it won't be that hard. But back then, I couldn't do it. And so coming back here, it's evident that like after 4 years, a lot of things can change and God can move in your heart. And so I'm glad I'm here now. So some similarities that I can see to my life comes from Joseph. He not only suffered physical and mental agonies, but he also had to suffer emotional ones, like the ones that could only make him stronger, to fulfill God's plan, and he chose to forgive and reject the bitterness that could have easily taken over his thought in life, like I had to. And he chose to realize that when we choose not to ignore our past and brokenness, is only when God is able to forgive the mistakes and the errors that is in it, and it's only when God can finally help us to heal through it. Your experiences do not have to define you. I mean, I'm speaking through my own experience, but if you find anybody who's had hardships and they've come to the Lord, you can find your peace in Him. I mean, through all the songs that we just sang, you can find your peace in Him. In Genesis 52:20, it says, Joseph speaks to his brother saying, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." And then he reassured them and spoke kindly to them, because he chose to be kind to them instead of being mad at them. I mean, for so many years, he was imprisoned by his own brothers. He worked like crazy because of an accusations for a crime that he never even committed. But he chose to remain faithful in God. And he really got to understand the reality of what it means to forgive others the same way that God has already forgiven us. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Like, oh, I'm just going to give God everything and like tomorrow it's going to be sunny and rainbows. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that as long as you put your faith on God, everything else will automatically disappear. Like, it won't be so like consumed in your mind, and God can just give you that peace. So yeah, my life is evident of that. And I'm just trying to say to everyone here that for all of this to happen, you have to choose to believe it, that God can move through your life. You have to want to seek God above your own desires, which I know is very hard. Only then can you accomplish everything that He has in your life. I mean, when I was in my darkest moments, I would have never thought I'd be here, move to Florida, anything like that, but God chose to be bigger than my own. And I'm now in the 12th grade, not in the 6th grade anymore. So in Jeremiah 1:5, we see God say, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." And then he goes on to speak in verse 8, "Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord." As we see from this, that God already formed you. Like he knew what your vision was. So he's just waiting for you to believe it, that he's there for you to find that peace. So I can testify that after praying for 6 years, I don't view my body the same way that I did. I used to hate my thighs and hate just my height in general, but now I don't focus on that. I focus on what lies ahead and how well he has made me instead. And after losing now 2 father figures as of late last year to divorces, I also came to realize that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what kind of hair, it doesn't matter what kind of skin tone, what kind of height I have, none of it matters because God chose to be on this earth no matter what. He chose to die for me no matter what. Everything about my father's disappeared when I finally realized that my significance can only be found when I realize that I'm a child of God. His plan was always bigger than any of those exterior sights that people have seen in me. He chose my heart and soul that is worth 1,000,000 pieces of blonde birthmarks. Everyone listening to me, if you want to have that peace that I have, all you have to do is ask for it. If you want to live that for your life, that he's given you on purpose, that he's already there waiting for you and just asking you to say, Abba, Father, I'm here and I'm ready for you. Please pray with me. Lord, we just come before you and pray that as we go into our small groups, Lord, or just into regular life, that we can remember that you designed us and made us on purpose. You chose us for a purpose that's beyond what we could have seen, that's beyond what Joseph could have seen, Lord. You still chose to be part of our lives no matter what, no matter our significances or the things we don't like about each other, Lord. I pray that everyone here, God, that we can start believing it to see it, Lord. And I say this all in your heavenly name. Amen.